If you want to know the secrets of existence and the true meaning of life, I can't help you. But if you want some book recommendations, why not try reading the ones I wrote? If you're a fan of giant monster mayhem and anime weirdness, why not try Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1? If horror is more your style, you can't go wrong with The Occult Mafia. Those who enjoy their fantasy with a dark twist may be interested in Emerald of Maddox City. And if you're interested in shared universes, why not read all three? Hop on down to the description for links to all three books on Amazon. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I did say I wasn't expecting the series to get better after episode 10 showed a little bit of improvement. In fact, episode 11 of Godzilla Singular Point seems to act in some ways as if episode 10, or at least portions of episode 10, didn't even happen. For example, I apparently have to correct myself on one thing. I was mistaken in thinking that Dr. Lee had survived. It turned out she really did die, and that scene at the dinner restaurant place was a flashback. But then again, how in the heck was I supposed to know that? There was no indication that the scene was a flashback at all. There was no filter to make it look a little hazy and washed out, or a dissolved transition between shots. It was just like, here's the shot that we had of Dr. Lee in a perilous situation at the end of the last episode. Very beginning of the next episode, here she is having dinner with May, and then it seems like she just goes off in her separate direction while May heads off to India. The flashbacks as seen in this episode are clearly marked as such. They clearly look different. Again, I find myself asking the question of how the heck do you mess that up? How difficult is it to just tweak the scene a tiny little bit to let us know that it's a flashback? I really am kind of stunned at that one. Also, the presence of the giant Rodan doesn't seem to have gone anywhere. You may recall in the last episode I said I was intrigued by that. Here comes this really big Rodan that's larger than the other ones, and it looks very different, and it's attacking Godzilla rather than flying alongside him. So you're thinking, okay, what's going on? Have the Rodans somehow turned against Godzilla? Is this some sort of different Rodan yet again? But now we're just back to watching the Rodans flying alongside Godzilla as he marches through Tokyo. And I'm not entirely sure if that's actually going to go anywhere now, or if it was just a random moment so they could have a kaiju fight in the last episode and say they delivered on their quota. Yeah, it's kind of weird how it feels like this episode is going against some things that were set up in the last episode. I suppose we'll see, but once again, it feels like Toe Enjo is just sort of making the story up as he goes along. And I'm sorry, I don't think that's a very good way to tell the story. I suppose in terms of major developments, we get Jet Jaguar upgrading continuously to the point where he's completely reset, and now it has the mind of an infant where he's rapidly learning. And of course he's gotten the coordinates that will bring them to the place where that future message is going to occur. That part felt a little odd. I know how it ties into everything. It just seems weird in terms of execution, and I'm not entirely sure where it's going to go. I'll still act on the assumption that it's going to go somewhere, but then again, there's quite a bit in this series that doesn't seem to have gone anywhere, really. I'm actually wondering, was there a point to Anguirus at this point, other than establishing that there's a monster that can see into the future at around the same time we were learning that about archetypes? Is he going to come back at all? Was there a point to having him be such a significant player? Or I don't know. It feels like the series is once again just sort of directionless. It also doesn't quite feel like they're moving with as much urgency anymore. Like, they're still moving with urgency, but it doesn't feel quite as energetic as it did in the last episode. The energy, I think, has kind of dipped in this one, which means I'm back to wondering, when's it going to get to the point? When is stuff actually going to start happening again? This is once again pointing me towards thinking that the story might not have been too long, but in fact was too short and had to be padded out in order to actually fit the episode count. I'm becoming more and more convinced of that the further along we go. As a result, I'm kind of finding myself struggling to come up with things to talk about, because for as much as it feels like there are things that have happened and things that are going to go somewhere eventually, it also kind of feels like not a whole lot has happened, and this series has given me no reason to think that everything it sets up is going to be paid off. You remember those twisted lampposts from a few episodes ago? Those had attention drawn to them like they were somehow really important. We have yet to find out why, and I've noticed a few commenters saying we're never going to find out. If that's true, then I have no reason to think that certain other things that seem important won't be explained. Sheesh, I am just up and down with this whole thing. More often down than up, it seems. And that's really disappointing to me. I don't want to be ripping into this series. I really don't. I'm a Godzilla fan. I like this stuff. I like anime. I like kaiju. I want this to be good. But it seems like right when I think things are actually going to get better, something happens that makes me go, well, maybe not. There's a documentary that I just rewatched, actually, second time through, called Chris Claremont's X-Men. And it's about comic book writer Chris Claremont and how he and his team basically made the X-Men what they are. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby may have created the X-Men originally, but Claremont is the guy who made them household names, basically. He's the one who did all the stories and characterizations that would eventually make their way into the movies, which, of course, those movies basically really jump-started the comic book movie craze that's still going to this day. I know Blade came before and was technically the first, but that's a tangent. I'm bringing this up for a reason. The film ends with a little account that Claremont gives about how he was in a restaurant at one point and he overheard this Mormon woman talking. She was married and she was talking to a friend about how she really liked the X-Men comics because she found them relatable. She really got invested in the characters and following their lives, not their adventures as he put it, their lives. And her husband was okay to indulge her hobby for a while, but they had children, and those children were getting to an age where they were starting to read, and the husband felt that he didn't want X-Men comics in their house anymore because, as far as he was concerned, they had themes that were inappropriate for children. And Claremont heard this woman bursting into tears and feeling devastated at how she was going to lose this part of her life because the X-Men were real to her. Not in sort of a creepy, you're my only friend, fictional entity kind of way, but more like she really got invested into it, to the point where those stories meant something much deeper to her. And that really struck him. And he felt that as a storyteller, it was his responsibility not just to create that experience for people, but to be worthy of that experience. And he always strives in everything he writes to be as good as he possibly can be and make a story that would be worthy of that sort of reaction. And I bring that up because that's how I view storytelling. Even without needing to see that documentary, that's always how I felt about storytelling. And that's why I get so passionate about this sort of thing. When I'm doing reviews and something either really speaks to me or it really rubs me the wrong way, it's because I get that invested, especially when it's something like Godzilla that I put so much time into that I care about it on a very deep level. Back when I was critiquing Shin Godzilla and the Polygon trilogy, some people tried writing me off as being a guy who just took this stuff too seriously and needing to lighten up. And my response was always, well, yeah, I take this stuff seriously. First of all, I'm a storyteller myself, and doing these reviews isn't just to share my thoughts, and it isn't designed to either tear people down or build people up. It's also to reinforce the good and bad things in myself. So I'm reinforcing this is what I should do, this is what I should try my hardest not to do, and hopefully that pays off in the works I've written. But also it's because I've spent so much time invested in Godzilla that when somebody screws Godzilla up really badly, that affects me. I can't help it. Godzilla is as real to me as the X-Men were to that Mormon housewife. And I'm not liking how this series seems to have just sort of been botching it in some ways. Like I said, it started out well enough, but then it slumped, and even after a minor improvement last time, it hasn't recovered from that slump, and I'm not entirely sure it's going to. And that disappoints me on a fundamental level. I occasionally see people commenting on my recent videos saying that I don't have to continue it. I may as well just drop it if I'm not enjoying myself. The way I see it, I'm already this far in, and I've been sharing my thoughts and saying that I want to see where certain things go. It would be kind of silly to stop at this point and just pretend like I never got involved. I do want to give the show a chance. I said that it was possible it was going to cram all of its major revelations into its finale. Maybe it will. I'm going to see if it does. But I'm going to keep watching it regardless, and I'm going to keep posting these videos regardless. But the fact of the matter is, I'm just sorely disappointed. This was supposed to be the good Godzilla anime, and you know, I do still think that ultimately it's better than the Polygon trilogy. It's certainly not as pretentious, it's more interesting to look at, it does better stuff with the monsters, but on a storytelling level, it is so deeply flawed that I will never be able to call it good. Even if it manages to pull a miracle at the end and have one of the best finales I've ever seen, I don't think that would justify how long it took us to get there and how during that time we were just kind of slogging through a bog, wondering when we were going to get out of it. Like I said in the last episode, I'm sure Toe Enjo is a perfectly fine writer, but even the greats have at least one flop in them. You look around at your favorite filmmakers or storytellers, they're bound to have at least one thing in there that's just not as good. Steven Spielberg directed Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jurassic Park, and Schindler's List, but he also directed 1941. Joss Whedon did Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Firefly, The Avengers, and Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along blog, but he also did all the worst parts of Justice League. William Shakespeare wrote Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, and Julius Caesar, but he also wrote A Winter's Tale. You see what I mean? There's always at least one flop, and it's looking like Godzilla Singular Point is going to be Toe Enjo's flop. Which is unfortunate, for a whole host of different reasons. I might try checking out his other stuff and see if he really is as good as people are saying, but all I can comment on right now is this series itself. And I'm just disappointed that it's dropping the ball this hard. Ironically enough, Mei Kamino, at least in the English dub, provided a perfect summary of this show in a single line. When she's talking to the woman with closed eyes who's apparently in charge of the Shiva organization, she says something to the effect of, If you have time to lecture me, then you have time to actually do something about it. And that's kind of how I feel about Godzilla Singular Point right now. Since it had plenty of time to lecture me, you would think it would also have had plenty of time to actually tell a good story. But it didn't. Only a couple episodes left. We'll see if it can somehow pull something out of it that's worthwhile. So I'll get around to that. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
If you enjoyed what you just saw, hop on down to the description for links to Patreon, DeviantArt, and all of our social media, as well as links for Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, and Emerald of Maddox City, 3 original novels I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.